Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Darati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsta Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Paridana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Radha Krishna Pada Sagana Laita Shri Vishakhan Vitamshra He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Manchakalpa Tarubhyascha Krupa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasudi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, everyone. So, welcome to our study here. So, we're now seeing this chart for many weeks, and we concluded last chapter and last section speaking about the value of knowledge. This knowledge, if we have the right type of knowledge, it frees us from death. Billions and billions of dollars and energy are spent trying to avoid and delay death. But when we work with knowledge, we actually find out how to avoid it and achieve the ultimate destination. And so this working in a detached manner in which no reactions are generated frees us permanently from the cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. And we talked about the best way to acquire knowledge, and that is coming from parampara. And the knowledge makes it clear to us that the material world is only a place of suffering, difficulties. We see it everywhere. And but we are trying to find those small glimmers of happiness. But knowledge leads us to actually search for a place in which happiness actually is eternally present and ever present. And so this knowledge is so powerful. It burns to ashes mountains of sins and is like the boat that allows one to cross this ocean of material misery. And so, we heard so many glorifications of this transcendental knowledge. And this when one realizes with knowledge that we are spirit soul and not just theory, but actually perceiving it as if one is living within this body like a resident within the city of 9 gates. We had that wonderful example Krishna explained that a self-realized person, the consciousness of such a person, then one can really be happy, understanding that the spirit soul has a higher engagement, unattached to the process of the body. So now, at the end of the 6th chapter, Krishna said, Yoginam api sarvesham madgate nantaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yukta tatomataha. So he said that of all the yogis. He had explained karma yogis, jnana yogis, Buddha yogis, Ashtanga yogis. Of all the yogis, the highest is the bhakti yogi, the bhakta, the devotee, who is in full consciousness of him. So, this highest of all position, Krishna now in the 7th chapter is going to describe. This top rung of the yoga ladder that we have been discussing. And we said we climb the ladder as we acquire more knowledge and more purification. So Krishna is so kind to Arjuna that he's going to now explain how to achieve this most dear position without even being asked. He is giving knowledge of the Absolute. So the title of chapter 7 is Knowledge of the Absolute. And Krishna is going to explain in this chapter how to see him everywhere. How the essence of everything that we experience is Krishna himself. And how all of our abilities come from Krishna. And how he is the controller of everything. Because with such vision, then one can be in full remembrance of Krishna. So Krishna said in the 47th verse of the prior chapter, one who always abides in me, thinks of me with great faith, right? That person is highest of all. So how to see Krishna everywhere, how to be present with him in all times, all circumstances, that Krishna is going to explain here. And when we understand that we are always with Krishna, we are always interacting with him, we're always dependent on him, then a natural and only conclusion for one with some intelligence is that one would surrender to Krishna. And by doing so, one very easily crosses over the ocean of material misery. So the surrender is very easy when we see that we're 100% dependent on Krishna in all aspects of our life. We just need to see it. It is actually a fact. So Krishna will describe how this is a fact. And then he's going to describe later why everyone doesn't see this fact due to the influence of Maya. And he'll explain the 4 types of miscreants who are in denial of this fact. And also 4 types of pious souls who are making progress towards this full surrender to Krishna. So this is chapter 7. It brings forth now the explanation of that last verse in chapter 6. So now let's read the first verse where Krishna says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, now hear, O son of Pritha, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. Right? So, Krishna now is going right into the point without even being prompted by Arjuna. Normally we hear Arjuna asking questions, right? And inquiring. Krishna, tell me about this, tell me about that. But here, Krishna is being so kind that he is telling Arjuna directly what to do. Okay? So, this bhakti yoga process, it's superior because Krishna personally helps us. We get his mercy in the path to purification. And this is a clear indication of that help. That Krishna is speaking this topic without even being asked. Meaning, he is offering this great knowledge out of his love and compassion to Arjuna and to all of us. So we saw in Shri Upanishad how Krishna personally takes control of the path of the devotee. And we see again here that this, by him speaking about this directly, is another just wonderful illustration of his mercy. So Krishna said the highest yogi is in full remembrance, full concentration of Krishna. So in order to have full remembrance of Krishna, what do we require? We need to have knowledge about Krishna. How can you be in remembering someone that you don't know anything about? If I say you be in full remembrance of, John Smith, and that's all I tell you, is it possible to meditate on that person? No, you have to know, who is John Smith? What is my relation to this person? What is the importance of this? Right? So in order to have understanding and remembrance of Krishna, we have to have knowledge of him. So this chapter is explaining to us the knowledge of him so that we may be able to remember and be in full concentration. So this chapter will tell us how to abide with him in full faith, how to think of him and render devotional service in this topmost position. So Srila Prabhupada characterizes this, ultimate knowledge, both in this verse and in the coming verse, about the ultimate knowledge. So the highest of all knowledge is knowing Krishna as Bhagavan, full and complete knowledge. All the other yoga processes of self-realization bring us to partial realizations, maybe to the Brahman realization, maybe to the Paramatma realization, as we saw in Ashtanga Yoga. But ultimately, full knowledge is knowledge of Krishna. And thus, it's knowledge of the absolute, meaning the complete, from which there is nothing beyond. Okay? So all the other processes, they are stepping stones to bhakti. By doing any other process, it must bring us to the point of bhakti for it to have complete success. Okay? But by going directly to bhakti, one gets the complete knowledge that we'll see in the next verse by the single step. Okay? So, and as we explained in the last section, that bhakti is done when one knows about Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One has this Bhagavan realization. So Krishna is giving again in this chapter now, and in this whole section we're entering, the topic of Bhakti Yoga. This section from chapter 7 to 12 discusses Bhakti. It is like the protected section of the Bhagavad Gita. In the front, we have the yoga ladder. In the back, we'll have more information about Gyan, knowledge. But in the middle, Krishna is speaking about bhakti. Like the king traveling in a procession. He is protected in the front and the back by his military. So similarly, Krishna has wedged the most essential and most confidential aspects. And, the middle of this whole book is the 9th chapter. In the middle of that will be the most confidential verse. Manmana bhava mad bhakto majidi mam namaskuru. So this is what we are beginning. So now we get a very important indication from Krishna how to get knowledge. How to get full knowledge? It is by hearing. He says, now hear. Now hear, O son of Pratap. So this hearing is important. We cannot scientifically obtain knowledge about Krishna. Nothing material can understand something spiritual. So it's not possible by any other means besides hearing from Krishna. This is the only way, Shravanam. And we hear directly from Krishna through Shastra, and we hear through his empowered representatives, the Guru Parampara. The bona fide spiritual master is carrying the message about Krishna to all of us. So one who is very dear to Krishna can know him. Just like, the king's, very confidential servant can carry information about the king that the ordinary citizen may not know. Similarly, Krishna has empowered the spiritual master to bring this knowledge to all of us. So this knowledge, it is imparted upon us by the mercy of Krishna and by the mercy of Guru. So, hearing Shastra from his devotees is non-different from hearing from Krishna directly. Reading this Bhagavad Gita presented by Srila Prabhupada is bringing this message of Krishna directly to us. No difference from Arjuna hearing directly from the mouth of Krishna seated on this chariot. Hearing from the mouth of a pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada, it carries the same significance. And what are the results of hearing? The hearing process awakens our dormant knowledge. Remember, we are Sat, Chit, and Ananda. Chit means full of knowledge. So Prabhupada indicates in this purport that the hearing is just awakening the dormant knowledge. It means we have all of this knowledge. We know to some degree knowledge of the Absolute. Of course, we cannot know Krishna completely. But this knowledge is actually lying dormant within us with this chit potency. But by hearing it, it awakens. And Krishna says, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge. Right? So Prabhupada is explaining to us that this knowledge is actually dormant. So one of the results is it awakens his dormant knowledge. Second result is the hearing purifies the devotee's heart, removes all of the impediments to rendering service. Third, the more one hears, the more one becomes fixed in devotional service. And the more one does bhakti, the more one becomes free from material attachments. So by adding Krishna to our life, we naturally remove all of the material attachments. So this is all facilitated by the process of hearing. So by hearing about Krishna, we'll be able to have this full faith that Krishna described in 647. He said, Shraddhavan bhajate yomam. Shraddhavan, with faith, not with doubt, with confidence. Abide in me, think in me. So all of this is facilitated by having knowledge which is received by hearing. And finally, what results from hearing is the ability to have full consciousness of Krishna. When we say full consciousness, it means nothing else occupying our mind. Whatever we're attached to, we have consciousness of. I'm attached to my home, my family, my job, so many things. Why? Because there's some attraction to that. So when we hear about Krishna, it leads to unending attachment. And that attraction leads to full consciousness. So remembering Krishna is one of the key qualities of devotional service, of bhakti. And thus he'll say, the pure devotee does one of four things. Man mana, always thinking of me. We know the foundational principle of devotional service, smartavya satatam vishnur vishmartavya najatutit. Sarva veda nishadyoshur etayodeva kinkara. That one should always remember Krishna, never forget him. So how to always be in consciousness of him, as he explained in the 47th verse? We need to have some attraction to Krishna. And that attraction comes from hearing about him. When we hear and know how powerful he is, how present he is everywhere, how sweet and loving he is to his devotees, his very wonderful pastimes, his interactions with his dear devotees. By hearing about all of this, one's attraction increases and thus begins to be in full consciousness. So knowledge leads to becoming attached to Krishna. And when we have knowledge by hearing, we know Krishna. And then full consciousness will manifest. So this hearing, it is critical to building our faith. And it leads to this full consciousness of the Supreme Lord. And this is the topmost quality we heard from Krishna in the last verse of the 6th chapter. So this opening verse Very, very powerful for us. Now, we're going to see what is this complete knowledge. So Krishna says in the second verse, I shall now declare unto you in full this knowledge, both phenomenal and numinous. This being known, nothing further shall remain for you to know. So Krishna is, again, so kind. He is saying, I'm going to reveal all knowledge, not partial. In full means nothing more to be known. Nothing is remaining. So Prabhupada opens the purport by saying, what is this complete knowledge? Complete knowledge includes knowledge of the phenomenal world, the spirit behind it, and the source of both of them. So this is complete knowledge. And phenomenal refers to the material world. Numinous refers to spirit. So there's three parts to this complete knowledge. Spirit, soul, the nature in which it lives, and the controller. Of course, who is the controller? Krishna. And we're going to see that very vividly. So when you know the cause of all causes, then you know all subsequent byproducts. No more wondering. No more, what else is there to know? Right? If I know about this planet Earth, I have some knowledge. But I just still don't know where the Earth came from. I may know everything about this Earth, every corner, up and down. But I still don't know who is the source of this Earth. Okay, maybe it's the solar system. So now I have knowledge of the solar system. But I still need to know who's the source of the solar system. And ultimately, we want to get to the cause of all causes. But once I know about the cause of all causes, then I, by definition, have knowledge of everything from there forward. And so when we have knowledge of the absolute Krishna, it is by definition complete. Because everything emanates from him. Right? So this is the important realization. And when we have knowledge of Krishna, it is very settling. Because then our faith can be complete. There is no more wondering, well, what else is out there? Is there something else? Krishna is one. Is there another supreme? Is there a cause for him? Is there something beyond? These doubts all become settled when we have knowledge of the absolute. Then one is fully satisfied with this complete knowledge, and one has full faith. Then this remembrance becomes very fixed. So this knowledge of the complete is very instrumental in establishing this full consciousness of Krishna with faith. And that's why Krishna has said, Shraddhavan bhajate yoma. So with faith. And this complete knowledge, when we have it, the cause of all causes, we are no longer left wondering, what else is there to know? It is a very settling result for our consciousness. No more guessing. Now, let's see how rare this knowledge is. Krishna says in the third verse, out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection. And of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. So this knowledge, it is very rare. Very, very rare. So we saw in the first 6 chapters, it took us to know the difference between the spirit and matter. We learned we're not this body and we're a spirit soul. The Jnani Yoga process and even the Ashtanga Yoga process, they take us up to the position at most of Paramatma realization. But still, one does not understand Krishna. They help distinguish between spirit and matter, but not to the point of understanding Krishna. So to know Krishna is very rare. And Krishna says, among thousands of men, maybe one may attempt for perfection. That means one who has entered the yoga ladder, right? Because they're attempting for a more transcendental goal. of all of those, hardly one knows me in truth, Krishna says. So knowing Krishna is very, very rare. And so Krishna is going to speak in this chapter, very detailed. He's going to speak in the 8th chapter how to achieve him. 9th chapter, there's very confidential knowledge. In the 10th chapter, he's going to speak about his opulences. 11th chapter, he's going to show about his universal form and establish his personal two-arm form as the supreme form. He's going to give us extensive knowledge about Krishna himself in this section. And we should understand it is very, very rare to get this knowledge. It's very, very rare. And we think, how it can be rare? It's right here in the Bhagavad Gita. Because one has to go and hear about Krishna, through the Shastra. So, this devotional service, it is the only means to understand Krishna. And that's why this section is called about devotional service. No matter how great of a scholar you are or a philosopher, only by the practice of bhakti can one come to know Krishna. By practicing devotional service, Krishna is pleased, and thus he reveals himself. So this knowledge, it must be revealed by Krishna. There's no other way. Okay? So this knowledge of Krishna is beyond the modes of nature. It's beyond what we can see with a telescope or a microscope. It's beyond our material vision. So the only means to understand, again, as we said in the first verse, is by descending knowledge by hearing. This comes from Krishna down to us. There's no other way. It is the only way. No mechanical study of this can be understood. And thus it is so rare, because it can only be understood by from Krishna or his devotees. Okay? As we said, the spiritual masters are empowered to guide us in this process. No amount of meditation or speculation or analysis, pranayam, samadhis, none of that can lead to know Krishna and what he does in Sri Vrindavan Dham with all of his beloved associates, unless Krishna reveals it to us. There's no way to know. And how is it considered rare? Of the mystic perfections, the liberated jnanis, they don't know. There are millions and millions of spiritualists, yet they don't know Krishna. Only a rare soul. And this is such an important point. Krishna is going to repeat this again in this chapter, in both the 19th and the 26th verses. How rare it is. So, we, by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, have come to know Krishna so in detail. He's made it so accessible to us. He presented Krishna book to us very early in his translation project, because he wanted us to know this very rare knowledge. He presented Krishna book and all of his activities in Vrindavan before completing Srimad Bhagavatam, in case he was not able to finish Srimad Bhagavatam. He wanted us to be able to know about Krishna. Why? Because this is the rarest of knowledge. So rare. So we should be very mindful that our knowledge of Krishna, and because Srila Prabhupada has made it, very accessible to us, we should not think it to be very common. It is actually very rare. And we have great evidence of this. Right? To understand Mother Yashoda and how she can bind Krishna. How Krishna can perform so many pastimes with the gopis, with the cowherd boys. This is so rare. Even Lord Brahma himself, in seeing Krishna eating with his left hand, sharing foodstuffs with his cowherd boys on the banks of the river Yamuna, was doubting, is this the Supreme Lord? And thus we have the Vimohan Lila. So, even Lord Brahma himself is working to understand this knowledge. So it is very, very rare. Lord Indra, as we know, from Govardhan Lila, was confused as to who is this boy. But then after the pastimes, he offers beautiful prayers, understanding this is the Supreme Lord. So we should be very mindful that this knowledge, it is truly rare. And by the great fortune of coming in contact with Srila Prabhupada, it has become accessible to us to know who Krishna is. But Krishna says very clearly here, hardly one knows me in truth. Hardly one. So we are very, very fortunate. Just two more points on this verse. When we speak about liberation, liberation itself is not what is pleasing. The prisoner, Borijan Prabhu talks about, when the prisoner gets out of prison, they think that is happiness. But it is not the getting out of prison that is happiness. It is what one can do when one is out of prison that gives one happiness. It is the activities that await outside the prison walls that yields happiness, not just getting free. So, in devotional life, we may think, oh, I want to go to the spiritual world. Well, getting out of the material world itself will not give pleasure. It's the activities that are performed in the spiritual world that are full of pleasure. And so what are those activities? It is bhakti. It is that we are learning the activities one does in the liberated state that yields this unending happiness. Right? Not just freedom itself. So, and when we offer devotional service, we're going to see that Krishna is the source of everything. So then what can we really offer him? He has everything. He is the source of whatever we are offering to him. It is his anyways. Yes, that is true. But what Krishna really wants from us, we're going to hear in the 9th chapter. He wants our love. That we can offer. Just as a child may take some materials from the home, which are provided by the father, all the materials, and make some nice gift and give to father. Well, father doesn't think, well, you used my own money to buy me a gift. Oh, that's very kind of you. No, the father realizes this is an expression of love from the child and appreciates it very much. So similarly, Krishna, as we'll see now, starting in the next verse, is the source of everything. But still, he appreciates the offerings of bhakti, whatever we offer, because it is the love that is accompanying it that is pleasing to him. So now, in the next 9 verses, 4 through 12, Krishna is going to explain how he is the source of both the material and the spiritual world and everything there is, and thus how we are always interacting with one of these at all times. So this is very important knowledge for us, because when we understand this, it allows us to recognize and acknowledge that we are always in association with Krishna. I remember when I first read this section, I was sort of confused. Why is Krishna talking about, earth, air, fire, water, ether, and all of this? But there's a very profound realization that comes from this, which is that we can understand that we are never disconnected from Krishna. And if we acknowledge and see that, then everything we interact with, we connect back to Krishna, and thus we can always be in remembrance of him. So let's see now this explained to us by Krishna in these coming verses. So we'll discuss 4 of these verses today. Earth, water, fire, air, and ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. All together, these 8 constitute my separated material energies. So why Krishna is speaking this? Because he wants us to know that everything you are interacting with materially is Krishna. The entirety of matter in one verse we are hearing summarized by Krishna. Krishna's material energy constitutes earth, air, fire, water, ether. Our body is made up of these 5 elements. The planet in which we live in is made up of these 5 elements. And where it comes from? Krishna. But not only the gross body, the physical form, but even the subtle, the mind. Where the mind comes from? It is one of the material elements. The intelligence and the false ego, the false sense of who I am. The subtle body is also coming from Krishna. Right? All of these are the inferior energy of Krishna. They're inferior because they lack consciousness. Right? It is dull matter that requires some living force to create some activities. So this is Krishna's apara shakti. So the materialist even can see Krishna everywhere. You know, this computer, it is made up of so many materials. That is Krishna's energy. Right? And we'll see Krishna is non-different from his energy. So he is represented here in his inferior energy. So what am I then ever separated from Krishna? It's never there. The table, this computer, the water, the air, everything, 100% of the time, we are connected to Krishna. So then why we say we are separated? Well, we are not separated, but Maya, illusion, leads us to think we are separated. The jiva tries to act on its own, but it is never separated from Krishna. Nothing. When we think we are the enjoyer, the Purusha, the controller, then we try to act in this way. But Krishna is the actual enjoyer because he is the owner of everything. We're simply trying to manipulate matter for our own enjoyment, but it never works. Why there is so much frustration? Because we are not meant to enjoy matter. We are meant to enjoy with spirit. So Krishna is the source of everything. So with this knowledge, we can understand, one, we are fully dependent on Krishna. And the conclusion should be, then we should work with Krishna, not work against him. Even Prabhupada talks about Paramatma. Paramatma, which we saw as the realization from the Ashtanga Yoga process, it is a temporary, pervasive aspect of Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. It means that Paramatma exists in that form only in the material world. In the spiritual world, Krishna is present himself. So Paramatma is also, it is a manifestation within the material world. It is spiritual, but it is a manifestation within the material world. And because the material world is temporary, the Paramatma aspect is a temporary, pervasive aspect of the eternal Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. So, important that we understand that this apara shakti, it constitutes everything dull matter. Well, what about beyond matter? Well, Krishna says in the fifth verse, besides this, O mighty armed Arjuna, there is another superior energy of mine, which comprises the living entities, who are exploiting the resources of this material world, inferior nature. So in addition to apara shakti, there is para shakti. Para shakti is the superior energy, spirit soul. Spirit soul is not part of the material energy. Okay? In the spirit soul, we know are expansions from Krishna. Mamaivam sho jiva loke, jiva bhuta sanatana. We are an expansion from the Supreme Spirit. So everything we see in existence, whether it's living or non-living, animate or non-animate, it is all one of Krishna's energies, either apara shakti or para shakti. It is one of these two energies. So everything we see, one of these two energies. So thus, one can then see Krishna everywhere. And this is the important knowledge of the Absolute to get us to be able to meditate on Krishna constantly. Because if I know that everything I'm around me, this wall, these bricks, the air, the water I drink, the spirit soul, that is all one of Krishna's energies. Then I can meditate on him constantly. When I'm at the office and I'm working on the computer and I'm entering some software codes, I can remember, even this computer is made of Krishna's energy. My mind and intelligence that is doing some programming, that is also from Krishna's energies. So we can see how we are constantly interacting. And thus this meditation on Krishna becomes very doable. Thus he is explaining these verses. It's a very transformational realization that we are never separated from the Supreme Lord. Only Maya is there to give us the confusion that we are separated. And Krishna will speak in a few verses about how to overcome that Maya and how to see things as they are. But right now he is explaining the actual facts. Right? So the whole material nature, again, it has no power to act unless it is moved by the superior energy, this Parashakti. Matter is dead and must be put into action by the superior energy. Just as a car doesn't move in the driveway unless the driver enters the car. Similarly, the body, like a vehicle, is just dull matter. The jiva, being present in the body, gives it movement. So the jiva has a choice. Am I going to identify with the body, the apara shakti, or am I going to identify with the spirit soul and the supreme spirit, parashakti? I only have one or two choices. Either way, I'm identifying with Krishna, one indirectly and one directly. So if I want to identify with matter, I try to enjoy my senses. If I want to identify with spirit, I do devotional service. And of course, most living entities, what is their endeavor? Trying to exploit the inferior material nature. Exploiting Krishna's resources. Right? But it is none other than Krishna's energy. So when we detangle from the material energy and attach to spiritual, then one is truly liberated from the material binds. Even in this material world, one can be liberated. Now, Prabhupada makes sure that we understand a very important point here in the purport to this 5th verse, that the jiva, though it is part of the apara shakti, the superior energy, it is subordinate. It is controlled by the Supreme Spirit. So though we are part of it, we are not independent. We may be one in quality, but we are very small in quantity. So we are his energy, but the energy is controlled by the energetic. Just as we may have some energy coming from a power plug. But the power from that plug is controlled by the power station, the source of the energy. So while we are, part and parcel with Krishna, we are one of his energies. We are dependent on him because he is the source. He is the energetic. So very important. Just as if the power station shuts off the power station, there's no more power coming from that plug. Right? So like a spark, it has heat and light. But if that spark goes too far away from the fire, it loses its heat and spark. If it remains within the fire, it retains its heat and light. Similarly, the spirit soul, it is dependent on Krishna for its existence. So let us not confuse that, I am part of the superior energy. No, there is a distinction. We are very, very different. So Prabhupada quotes this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 10:87-30, that we are under Krishna's control, and thus when we know that, we serve him, and thus experience the perfection of life. So once we accept this fact of being under the supreme control of the Supreme Lord, this surrender happens, and when the surrender happens, then we truly become happy. And this also disproves the Mayavadi philosophy that all the spiritual energy is one. We're the same as God. No. We are subordinate to the Supreme Spirit. Okay? 6th verse. All created beings have their source in these two natures. Of all that is material and all that is spiritual in this world, know for certain I am both the origin and the dissolution. So Krishna is now summarizing that he is the source and the destroyer, the origin and dissolution of all things. All things come from these two natures. So Srila Prabhupada in the purport speaks about this importance that spirit gives life to matter. Matter cannot create spirit. Scientists are trying to create life through all kinds of manipulations of different chemicals, different lab materials, scientifically trying to create life. It will never happen because matter is inferior dull in all circumstances. Spiritual energy, it comes from Krishna. You cannot create that in a laboratory. The body only moves because of the presence of spirit. And we know that. As soon as the soul leaves the body becomes inanimate. Immediately. So scientists who think they can create life, oh, we're close. It is like a mirage. You think you're close to the water, but you'll never get to it. Because this life to matter, it comes from the spiritual energy. And who is the source of that? It is Krishna. He is the origin of all matter and all spirit. We may arrange matter to create some giant skyscraper and say, I created this skyscraper. But all we are doing is rearranging Krishna's matter. We're just rearranging Krishna's matter. So when we create a giant skyscraper, we should just understand that. Okay, this is being provided by Krishna. He is done. He has also given me the intelligence to arrange it in such a way. Then how I can use it with him, not separated from him. When we learn to use matter in this way, then one finds peace and happiness. So now, in addition to being the creator and the destroyer, in the 7th verse, Krishna says, O conqueror of wealth, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. So not only is he the creator and destroyer, he's also the maintainer. So that he's the beginning, the end, and in the middle, making it all work together. So Krishna is holding everything together, but we don't see it. Just as a pearl necklace, all the pearls are held together in a nice circular form. But how they are held together? By the invisible string. So Krishna is arranging matter in all these different ways so that we can have some form of existence. But we should understand, it is all resting upon him. He is the maintainer of everything. The material energies combine in so many different ways, not by randomness. It is not random that there is certain amounts of oxygen, certain amounts of carbon dioxide, certain amounts of water, certain amounts of different minerals in the earth. All of this is being arranged. Climatary systems, so that we can have an existence. It is not random. Krishna is maintaining this. The earth is orbiting at a very fast speed around the sun in a very precise pattern and a precise distance to preserve our existence. Not random. Everything is being ordered and maintained by Krishna. So we should be, understanding that all the sense of experience we have here and how wonderfully nature is providing, it is all done by the supreme brain of Krishna as the maintainer. So we have to see this, though, through having knowledge, which comes from our devotional service. And Prabhupada talks in the purport in this verse that there is no truth superior to me. It again defeats this Mayavadi philosophy. The Mayavadis say that Krishna's form, when he's speaking to Arjuna, it is a temporary form of Maya. But Krishna says, there is no truth superior to me. He is speaking. It means that is the ultimate truth. If this was a temporary form, it would mean there's something beyond that. So this idea that Krishna is ultimately impersonal again is defeated here. Because he's saying there is no truth superior to me. It means I am the ultimate, the source of everything. So these 4 verses, 7:4 through 7:7, it explains how we can see Krishna everywhere through his energy. Ultimately, Krishna is going to explain 3 things to us in the coming verses. How to see him as the source of everything, how he is the essence of everything, and how he is the controller of everything. So starting in the next verse, he's going to say, I am the taste of water, the light of sun. So he's explaining, I'm not only the source, I am the essential principles within everything you enjoy. And then he's going to conclude this section by saying, explaining how he is the controller. So when we see him being the source, the essence, and the controller, then we can unequivocally be in full remembrance of Krishna. So this is how we'll become yoginam api sarvesham madgate nantaratmana shaddaban bhajate yomam same yuktatamataha. These first, several verses from chapter 7 is giving us the indication of how to abide with him in faith. Okay? All right, so we'll conclude here. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda. Any comments or questions, clarifications?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, the last sentence you said, you said 3 things, Prabhuji. You said he's the source, he's the
Essence,
and the
controller. The controller.
The controller. Okay.
Yeah. So when we understand how these 3 combine, then we have full realization of Krishna's presence in all aspects of our life. Being the source of everything, the essence. He's going to say that when you take water and you are nourished, your thirst is nourished by drinking water. Don't forget, I am the essence of the taste of water. He says, I am that taste. So even in drinking a simple glass of water, we are interacting with Krishna. He is the principle of that. And ultimately, we'll see he's also the controller. Okay?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dhanvablam. Very nice class, Prabhuji. Can you please explain that part, that Mayavadi philosophy part? I didn't understand. You said no truth is superior to me.
Yeah.
What is that ground first for the Maya philosophy, and then how Krishna is like kind of
So think about the context of Krishna's on the battlefield. He's speaking to Arjuna. Arjuna's on the chariot, and he's speaking to Arjuna. And he says to Arjuna, there is no truth superior to me. So any logical person would understand that when Krishna says that, it means when he says me and points to me, points to himself, that this is the ultimate truth. I am the ultimate truth. So this form of me is eternal. It's present in the spiritual world because this is the ultimate. If this was a temporary form, if this was just a form that I take when I come to the material world, then I cannot say there's no truth superior to me. Right? Because then, so when Krishna reveals Paramatma, he doesn't say this is the absolute, because the Paramatma, as I mentioned, is a temporary, all-pervasive aspect. When he explains the universal form, he's going to explain this is a temporary form. But when he when he points to himself and says me, he says there's no truth superior to that. Now the Mayavadis suggest that when Krishna takes his form, it is a material form. He is forced to take a form like all of us when he descends, but when he goes back, he resumes his impersonal form because that's the absolute truth. But so clearly, Krishna is saying, no. This is the superior truth. There's nothing beyond that. If the impersonal was beyond that, then he cannot say there's no truth superior to me. So that's how, and that's the comment Srila Prabhupada makes in the purport. He spends most of the purport thinking about that aspect. So over and over again, right? In chapter 2, we saw so many presentations. Never is a time I did not exist nor you. Never will there be a time that you don't exist nor me. And here is another very important statement. This is the absolute truth. And that's why this topic, knowledge of the absolute. We have to get to the pinnacle of all knowledge to be fully settled. And this is the absolute. And so he is saying, no truths beyond me. Once you know me, you know everything.
One more thing I didn't understand was that Paramatma form which you were saying, that is in the material realm, but though he is in the living entities, he is there all throughout, right? And even when our soul is passing from one to the other, he's always there in our hearts. So how can we consider that is temporary, Paramatma bond, which at least I was not aware of the fact that Paramatma is a temporary concept out here.
So, let's make sure we understand temporary and eternal. What is temporary? Paramatma is an expansion of Shirodakshaya Vishnu. It's a reflective expansion. That reflective, expansive aspect is temporary. Shirodakshaya Vishnu is eternal. But because when the living entity goes back to the spiritual world, there is no need to accompany the spirit soul in Paramatma because Krishna is there. When the living entity descends to the spiritual world, Krishna says, okay, you're leaving me. Wait, I'm coming with you. I'll be sitting next to you in the body you choose to take. And while you're traversing all these different bodies, I'll be sitting there next to you as Paramatma, inspiring you according to your desire. But as soon as that living entity sheds its body, material body, and regains its spiritual form, now it is full in spirit, where Krishna is present in his eternal form. So there is no need, there's no service of the Paramatma. The Paramatma is there to guide the living entity according to its desires while it's traversing the material world under the influence of Maya. Or when it is designed to go beyond Maya on the path back home to Godhead. Right? So Krishna reflects himself and present within the bodies of all the living entities when they're within the material world. So it is temporary in the sense that it's because the material world is temporary. When the whole universe is concluded and all the living entities re-enter and go into a dormant state into the presence of Mahavishnu, Karandaksha Vishnu, there's no Paramatma during that time. Right? But as soon as the living entity re-enters its next place, Paramatma is again present. So it is on and off, like that way. Is that okay?
Yeah, I was not aware of that. Thank you.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, Prabhupada makes that nice, subtle point in the purport for us. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, can you please, I know we've heard this many a time, but can you please tell us a little bit more about, one more time about the Sat Chit Ananda aspect of the soul?
Yeah. So the soul has the principal ingredients: Sat, Chit, and Ananda. Sat refers to the eternal nature, so it is an eternal aspect. Chit is the Chit is the knowledge potency. It is full of knowledge. All of this knowledge we are acquiring is lying dormant within us. And by hearing, we are bringing it out. And finally, Ananda. The soul is full of bliss, happiness. It is why every living entity has this singular goal. How that can be the case? It is only because we have this common ingredient of Ananda. So, this is Satchitananda. And of course, Krishna is the source of that. He is the, his form is also Satchitananda. It's okay?
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Bhaji.
This bhakti is suitable for less intelligent people. What does that mean exactly, Prabhu? Is it kind of very easy for us?
No.
For less intelligent people?
What the Gyanis and sometimes the Mayavadis will claim is that this bhakti, this singing and dancing, eating prasadam, that is for one who cannot take to the process of studying Shastra, Vedanta. And we see this in the pastime of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with Prakashananda Saraswati in Kashi. So, some in ignorance will understand that bhakti is some, lesser process for those who cannot take to the higher process of mental speculation. But that is in direct opposition to what Krishna says. Krishna is establishing that bhakti is the superior process. It is the end-all be-all. So don't think that just going around and chanting all day long is some easy process. It may look easy. Is it easy? Is it easy to concentrate and think of the Supreme Lord and His beautiful form all day long? No, it's not easy. The process may be simple, but it is not easy. So Krishna, Prabhupada is guiding that don't be bewildered to think, someone may propagate, oh, you are a sentimentalist, just singing and dancing because you are not fit to study Shastra. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says in a reverse logic, yes, my guru thought me to be incapable of doing what you all are doing. He thought me to be a fool. So he told me just to chant. And he is explaining this, and the Mayavadis realize, oh, he is actually taking to the superior process. We are the fools. And they become converted and become wonderful devotees. So this bhakti process, it is the highest of all processes. But if you observe externally, somebody who is, reciting Shastra and who can memorize and quote Sanskrit from so many different Vedas and Puranas and all of this, we may think, oh, they are superior. They have knowledge. This person is just sitting and chanting one mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. They know one mantra. This person knows 1,000 mantras. This must be superior. Some fools will suggest such a way. But this chanting of Mahamantra is not so easy. Yes, maybe simple. So that is the point Prabhupada is making. And of course, Krishna is going to tell us over and over again, you abandon everything and just become my devotee. It's okay?
Yes, Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Okay, anything else? All right, so next week we'll continue with chapter 7. So thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.